Yo, what is going on, guys? It's your boy AR on 20, bringing you guys weeks 3 and 4 of the pivotal moments. These weeks were a lot harder than last week's set to choose pivotal moments for, because a lot of these games were very one-sided. I felt like there were some games that had some really pivotal moments, but as a whole, this set of pivotal moments feels a lot less pivotal, more so just moments. But I'm still going to go over them. There was definitely some pivotal moments, and I'll get into those in the match. But as a whole, this was a lot more of a one-sided set of weeks. So I'm sorry in advance if I get something that you guys don't personally think was pivotal. As I said, it was very hard for me to choose things. And speaking of a hard game to choose a pivotal moment for, this was probably one of the harder ones. We have Dan, coach of your Rosenbradenborg, versus Leo, coach of your Durham Dredagons. And there wasn't really anything that just shifted the momentum of this game. It was really one-sided. Leo kind of dominated the whole time, but something that definitely helped, at least differential-wise, was Leo having Vacuum Wave on his mixed Blaziken, which he also had Flare Blitz on. It allowed him to not only pick off the Espeon, which could have otherwise at least killed the Blaziken, though I'm not too sure how it would have mattered for differential-wise, but it also allowed him to pick off the Magearna as well. So as I said, it helped him differential wise. I don't think that really saved Leo the win there. It might have, but I don't think it mattered too much, though it definitely sealed Leo for his guaranteed win. So as I said, it was less pivotal, more so just an important moment. Next up, we have Jolt, coach of your Toronto Raptors, versus Jack, coach of your Norwich Skitty. And something that really mattered for this match was the Diancie getting the boost with Diamond Storm in its defense. This allowed Jolt to not only stay in with Diancie versus mons such as Crook and Latias, but also allowed him, even with his Shukaberry, to still live the Crook when he was pretty weakened with his Diancie. But he was taking nothing from Crocodile with his +2 defense boost along with the Shukaberry. It didn't really have anything to break him. Even the Latias still wasn't doing that much damage with the Energy Ball, which I found very surprising. But, you know, Diancie's a lot fatter than people give it credit for a mon that has no recovery. And it's not exactly the greatest mon in terms of being a wall. It only has base 50 HP. But it's still putting a lot of work versus Jack's team, as you can see in the match. Next up, we have Astor, coach of the Montreal Habsels, versus Magic Activator, coach of the Memphis Grizzlies. And, guys, this was a very long game, as I said. Let's say pivotal moment. Well, oh no, this was actually a very pivotal moment, but it took so long for it to happen. I'm just glad that Astor finally decided, after nearly an hour worth of back and forth, to get the sub up with his crest, because it allowed him to just plow through Magic's team at that point. There was nothing Magic could really have done in that situation. Crest just picked off everything, and it allowed Astor to nab the win because he couldn't get Toxic, he couldn't get Dragon Tailed out, because I believe the Dragon Tail doesn't switch you out behind a sub, though I could be wrong. I'm almost positive that Roar does, because Roar is a sound move, but I don't think Whirlwind or Dragon Tail do. So it allowed him to just stay in and just go through Magic's team, and boy did that work. Next up, we have Papa C, coach of the New York Lynx, versus Randy, coach of the Texas Rangers. And something that I think really inflicted the match in terms of Papa C's side, him sacking Jolt Meloetta. I'm not sure why he thought... Well, he explained that he didn't think that Meloetta would have had Focus Blast. But at the same time, Jolt is fairly decent against Randy's team, so having Focus Blast on a Meloetta isn't exactly something that's horrible or even a bad play. Especially when... I mean, if he could afford to run the move, then why doesn't he bring it? So I don't get why Papa C didn't at least scout for a potential Focus Blast, especially when it could have been very obvious, or very easy to have scouted at least. So why he didn't scout for it, I don't know, but it definitely ended up inflicting him in the match, because him losing Drill definitely hurt him a lot. I'm not sure if he would have necessarily won the game had he had it, because Papa C's been a little bit of a downward play. But overall, I mean, it sort of just sealed his fate. It allowed Randy to just clean up later in the game, I feel like. It made it, his entire game, for that matter, it just made it feel like it was a lot easier, in my opinion. So, next up, we have Gregulator, coach of the Los Angeles Clefables, versus Aberforth, coach of the Newcastle Umbreons. Now, this was another game that I thought was just very dominant. I thought it was 100% dominant for Abe, though something that definitely helped him out a lot was him getting off the leech seed with his Superior versus the Celesteela. While he didn't go into the Mamoswine against the Nihilego like he originally anticipated, because he went into the Superior, he was able to get off the Leaf Storm, then go for a Leech Seed on the Celesteela, which allowed him to switch in his Rotom, whereas otherwise Celesteela could have gotten more Beast Boost off. It would have been able to potentially get off enough Beast Boost to the point where it could have still been alive. Maybe the Mamoswine would have been weakened more, I'm not too sure. But at the very least, the Leech Seed allowed Rotom to come in and waste a few turns to get Celesteela into Ice Shard range, which guaranteed Abe the win. So as I said, it was less of the fact that I feel like it necessarily changed the momentum, but it more so just secured the win. As there wasn't much to it. It just felt like Abe controlled the entire match. So now we're going to get into the Week 4 games. Now, the Week 4 games were definitely a lot more interesting in my opinion. They were a lot more enjoyable to watch because slightly less stall, slightly more back and forth, but overall, as I said, these were very dominated games in my opinion. So first up we have Leo, coach of the Durham Druddigons, versus Papa C, coach of the New York Clinks. So once Leo sacked Bronzong to Drill, in my opinion, this was sort of where Leo picked up a lot of momentum because he was able to get Drill into range of Water Shuriken with Greninja, and because Leo took out the biggest threat to his team being Excadrill, which Papa C is now sacked 2 weeks in a row to things that he really shouldn't have in my opinion. It allowed Aerodactyl, well, Mega Aerodactyl and Raichu to have a very easy late game in my opinion, because there wasn't really much on Papa C's team that wanted to handle either. Raichu was free to just click Volt Switch versus his team, and Mega Aerodactyl has to beat every non-Scarfmon. So overall, I feel like that because he sacked Drill could have handled both his Mons very well, and especially with how much they did against Papa C's team, I'm not sure why he just let it go. But overall, I mean, people make plays. Obviously, it's a GBA. It's a bigger stadium. Well, it's a bigger audience, I should say. And battling in front of that many people, obviously, you know, nerves get to you. Next, we have Randy, coach of the Texas Rangers, versus Aberforth, coach of the Newcastle Umbreons. One thing that really gave Randy the win this match, in my opinion, was when he got the Gigavolt Havoc off on the Jirachi, because this gave Scizor the opportunity to go through the rest of Abe's team later on in the game. And I know for a fact that getting rid of the Jirachi was the moment for this, because it was the only Mon that really wanted to wall out the Aerial Ace, U-Turn, Bullet Punch, Roost. Had he brought Knockoff, it would have been a different story. It probably wouldn't have even been too pivotal of a play necessarily. But the fact that Randy didn't have Knockoff, and he really needed this Jirachi gone to actually put in that much work with Scizor, and the fact that Abe just let it go down. Obviously, there was only so much he could have done, but, I mean, maybe scout for Z moves. So, obviously, again, there's only so much he could have really done in that moment, and I'm sure it wasn't exactly the first thought he had in his mind. But because he did lose his Jirachi, it allowed Randy to just clean up later on with the Mega Scizor. Which, by the way, Randy, props to you for bringing Aerial Ace. I would never have thought to do that as an Emboar counter, so very good play on your part, bringing that. So, next up, we have Daniki, coach of the Rosen Radenborg, versus Jack, coach of the Norwich Skitty. And something that really gave Dan the win in this match was once Jack, for some reason, just let him keep setting up Calm Minds. It really didn't matter because he just let him get to +5. He didn't go for an earlier Toxic to maybe just at least try and mitigate how many Calm Minds would be getting up. He didn't really do anything to stop it, in my opinion. He sort of just banked on crits. He got up Rocks for some reason. I didn't get that. It was just another turn that he allowed Dan to set up. Why he let Dan set up to +5, I will never know, but it allowed Dan to very easily win the game with his Calm Mind Speak Unit, and then at the last turn switch into Mega Absol and kill off the Latias to save us all time. And to also, again, try and preserve a differential and avoid getting crit and losing because of that. So, next up we have Gregulator, coach of the Los Angeles Clefables, versus Magic Activator, coach of the Memphis Drizzlies. Now, something that I think really gave Greg the loss this week was when he let his Celesteela go down versus Mega Venusaur. This is by far his best and only switch into both stabs Gardevoir had, because while Nihilego switched into Fairy Stab, it did not like Psychic Hits, especially not the Psyshock, which killed it off. And because of this, Gardevoir became a much bigger threat than it needed to have been. Had he kept it around, it would have been a lot more pressured to go for things such as Thunderbolt, which he could have played around and potentially even banked on getting setup turns with Zygarde and potentially winning from it. But because he let his Celesteela go down, I feel like that was sort of the moment that gave Magic the win, because Gardevoir was able to put in a lot of work after that, in my opinion. And it stopped it from being a game that could have very well went to timer, had Greg kept the Celesteal around. Not necessarily because Greg stalled with it, but because it would have just been a lot more of a match that was back and forth. There wasn't even really too much time or stall, if I'm being completely honest. It was just a long game. So I'm going to get into Jolt versus Astor, our final game of week 4. Now, this was a very hard game to watch, especially if you're a Toronto Raptors fan. So, Jolt of the Toronto Raptors had lost his game to Astor, coach of the Montreal Habsels. I feel like the moment that really just sold us, and it was very early on, was once Jolt's Mew got paralyzed. You can theory mon all you want. I agree with a lot of what Jolt said, of being completely honest in his theory moning, but it doesn't change the fact that he did lose the game, and how he lost the game was, in my opinion, because the Mew got paralyzed. A lot of people are going to probably get on my ass saying, you should have put that it was the Hurricane misses. The Hurricane misses, while they were important, I think they weren't necessarily what gave Jolt the loss, but they definitely did lead to it. What really gave Jolt the loss, in my opinion, was once his Mew got paralyzed, because it stopped it from being an actual efficient stall breaker versus monsters Umbreon and Cress, who were able to get off recovery, or in Umbreon's case, got off a Wish, and then was able to protect off, so it would always get its HP back. So Mew really lost his job as it being a stall breaker this week and getting through Astor's very, very fat core, being Umbreon and Cress. Yeah, because his Mew got paralyzed, though, there was absolutely no possible way for Jolt to have reliably broken that, besides with Scolipede, who wasn't really switching in. As I said, I agree with a lot of Jolt's reasoning behind not switching in Scolipede, but at the same time, at that point, if there really wasn't any other way to have won, why didn't you? Overall, it was just a very hard game to watch after the Mew got paralyzed. And yeah, that's really it for pivotal moments this week. A lot of very one-sided games, in my opinion, that were decided very early on. Obviously, you know, coaches played really well, but there's only so much they can do. And this is just one of those weeks where it felt like everyone was in that position. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like down below. I will see you guys next week. Peace out.